You meet someone new, they feel different, they seem safer or kinder or more stable than the last one. You tell yourself this time will be different. And for a while it is. But then something shifts. A tone in their voice, the way they pull back when you need them, the silence that stretches too long. And suddenly you're standing in the same emotional landscape you swore you'd left behind. Different face, different story, same feeling. You start to wonder if you're choosing poorly, if you're missing some obvious red flag everyone else can see. But the truth is harder than that. You're not choosing poorly. You're not choosing at all. Attraction doesn't feel like a decision. It feels like recognition, like something in you waking up when you meet them. But what's waking up isn't desire in the way you think it is. It's pattern recognition. Your nervous system has been mapping emotional terrain since you were too young to know what a relationship was. It learned what closeness feels like, what distance means, what safety costs, what love requires. And now, when you meet someone, your body scans them. Not consciously, not with thought. It scans for the familiar. And when it finds it, it calls that attraction. So the person who feels electric, who feels like they see you, who feels like finally, they're not new. They're playing a role your system already knows. They fit into a script that was written long before you met them, and you don't notice, because familiarity doesn't announce itself. It just feels right. This is why people confuse intensity with connection. Intensity happens when something unresolved gets activated. When an old emotional wound finds a new context. It feels urgent because it is urgent, but not in the way you think. It's not urgency toward the person. It's urgency toward resolution. Your system believes in some wordless way that if you can just make this work, if you can just get them to stay, or soften, or see you, then something old will finally be finished. But it won't. Because the urgency isn't about them, it's about what they represent. You think you're choosing someone who makes you feel alive, but what you're feeling isn't aliveness. It's familiarity dressed as novelty. It's the same emotional frequency you've been tuned to for years, maybe decades. And your body relaxes into it, not because it's good, but because it's known. The ones who don't fit the pattern, they feel wrong. Too easy, too calm, too available. You tell yourself there's no spark, that something's missing. And you're right, something is missing. The tension you've learned to call love. So you pass on them. Or you stay but feel distant, restless, like you're waiting for the relationship to start, even though it already has. Because connection without crisis doesn't register as connection. It registers as nothing. This is what repetition does. It doesn't just create patterns, it creates identity. You become the person who loves people who leave, or who need saving, or who can't fully arrive. And after enough time, you stop seeing it as a pattern. You see it as who you are. The evidence mounts. Every relationship confirms it. And the mind, trying to make sense of it, builds a story. You're too much. Not enough. Unlovable in some specific, unchangeable way. But that story isn't true. It's just the only story the pattern allows you to see. You can know all of this and still do it again. That's the part that makes people feel crazy. You can see the pattern, name it, understand where it came from, and still walk directly into it. Because insight lives in the mind, and the pattern lives in the body. The body doesn't care what you understand. It cares what feels survivable. And the familiar, even when it hurts, feels survivable. The unknown doesn't. So you meet someone new, and some part of you scans them faster than thought, faster than language. And if they match, if the shape of their absence fits the shape of your need, if their distance echoes something older than memory, your system says yes. Not because you want to suffer, but because suffering in a familiar way feels safer than peace in an unfamiliar one. People don't repeat relationships because they lack options. They repeat them because the nervous system is trying to solve something. It believes that if you encounter the same dynamic again, but this time you get it right, this time you make them stay, or soften, or choose you, then the original wound will close. But it doesn't work that way, because the person in front of you isn't the person who hurt you first. They can't give you what you didn't get then. They can only give you the same shape of absence, and you'll interpret that absence as your failure. as proof that you're still not enough, still too much, still the problem. But you're not the problem. The pattern is the problem. And the pattern isn't about them. It's about what your system learned to call love before you had words for it. This is why people stay in relationships that don't work, not because they don't see it, but because leaving doesn't solve it. The pattern doesn't live in the relationship. It lives in you. So you leave and it follows. You choose differently and it adapts. You swear you'll be more careful and it waits. There's no moment where you suddenly stop. No realization that flips a switch. There's only the slow, uncomfortable work of noticing, of catching yourself mid-attraction and asking, is this chemistry or is this familiarity? Is this person good for me or do they just feel like home? And even then, knowing the difference doesn't mean you'll choose differently. Because the pull of the familiar isn't logical. It's not something you talk yourself out of. It's something you feel in your chest before you've finished a sentence with them. Something that says, this one matters. And it does matter, just not in the way you think. You don't escape these patterns by choosing better people. You escape them by becoming someone the pattern doesn't recognize anymore. By letting your nervous system learn that closeness doesn't have to hurt, that availability isn't boring, that calm isn't emptiness. But that kind of learning doesn't happen in your head. It happens in your body. Slowly, through experiences that contradict what you've known. And most people never get there. Not because they're broken, but because the pattern is efficient. It keeps you in motion. It gives you something to solve. And solving it feels like purpose. So you keep going. Different cities, different jobs, different people, same you, same pattern. Until one day you notice, not with hope, not with a plan to fix it. Just notice, and maybe that's all you can do. See it clearly. Stop calling it choice, stop calling it love, and sit with the uncomfortable truth that you've been repeating something you didn't choose to learn. The pattern doesn't end because you see it. It ends when it stops serving you. And for some people, it never does.